of how we identify our perfectionism patterns that are holding us back. And then I'm going to give you the tools. You will walk away today with tangible tools to heal your perfectionism and an understanding of what kinds of perfectionism are holding you back. So I'm really excited. A little bit about me. I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a trainer. My memoir, Addicted to Perfect, came out in March. And who am I? I am someone who struggled with perfectionism for more than 3 decades, which is why I teach it. I worked at law firms for 9 years and led their marketing department. So I understand the professional services industry and the perfectionism that that runs through professional services. So I have experience working in that area. And so I can relate to the industry that you all are in. So I'm excited to talk to you today. I overcame a 10-year addiction to Adderall, which was just a symptom of my perfectionism. And that is detailed in my memoir, Addicted to Perfect. And so I'm just excited today to talk about perfectionism. This is my favorite quote about perfectionism by Brene Brown, right? Which is, perfection is a 20-ton shield that we lug around thinking it will protect us when in fact, it's what's keeping us from taking flight. We think that perfection is the goal, that's what's going to help us achieve success, happiness, joy, fulfillment, but it's actually preventing you from those things. And so today we're going to talk about how it's preventing you and then how you can heal it so you can overcome it. I'm really excited. But let's talk first about what is perfection. So there is a difference between perfection and striving for excellence. Because a lot of us perfectionists, we think, well, how am I going to achieve success if I'm not looking to achieve perfection? And what we really want to achieve is excellence. So the difference between the two is that perfection is very externally motivated. It's when we outsource our intuition, our decision-making, our trust, right? We phone 8 friends to make a decision. It's when we look outside of ourselves for the answers, right? What do you think I should do? Who am I? What decision should I make? Because we're afraid. It's fear-based, right? We're afraid that we don't have the answers. And so we're looking outside of ourselves. You have the answer. You know me better than me. When actually you are the expert of you. Then we've got excellence, right? Which is internally motivated, right? I'm going to do this because I deserve it. I've been working hard for it. And, I'm worth it. It's courage-based, not fear-based. It's really the difference between love and fear, right? So it's, what would love do is a question that I ask myself a lot. How would love treat myself? How would love treat others? How would love and compassion approach something? So excellence is, what would love do? And perfection is based in fear and scarcity, and it's externally motivated. It's when we are driven by the things outside of us. We think those things are going to give us happiness, which actually the things that are going to give you happiness are the things inside you. So let's dig a little deeper. What are some symptoms of perfectionism? So when I'm talking about perfectionism, I'm talking about the deep roots of perfectionism. I'm not talking about I need to have a perfectly organized house. I need to have a perfectly clean desk. I'm talking about the deep roots of perfectionism. So people pleasing, approval seeking, seeking that external validation, like I was saying, phoning 8 friends for advice, avoiding conflict, right? Being afraid of having a difficult conversation, either in your personal life or professional life. As perfectionists, we avoid conflict because we're not in control of the outcome. So we just think out of sight, out of mind. We also can avoid conflict in our intimate relationships because we're afraid that if we speak our truth, we'll be abandoned, right? What will someone think of me if I speak up for my needs and I'm not perfect? We think that our needs aren't worthy or valid. It's when we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves and also others, right? When I was leading the marketing departments at the law firms that I worked at, I had unrealistic expectations of my team, and it's because I had unrealistic expectations of myself. Procrastination, a huge symptom of perfectionism. Oftentimes we procrastinate because we're afraid that if we start, it won't be perfect. We put it off, or we also procrastinate because we think we need all the perfect information before we make a decision. I've got to have that piece of information and that piece of information. Anxiety, fear, worry are also byproducts of perfectionism. We find ourselves, in an obsessive thought. I call it a perfection tornado. We'll feel shame or judgment about ourselves, and then the tornado just grows and grows and starts taking everything in its spot, right? We have a typo in an email and we start beating ourselves up, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate that brownie for lunch, and then I'm a horrible spouse and I'm not a good parent, and it's a tornado. And so you have to catch it. Comparing yourself to other people's trajectories, right? Not trusting that what's meant for you can't miss you. Imposter syndrome is another symptom, right? Feeling like a fraud. Like, why am I here? I don't deserve this. Being afraid to speak up in meetings. So these are just some of the major symptoms of perfectionism. I also want to note that as we're talking through this, I've healed. Like, perfection for me, I'm a recovering perfectionist. These things still come up for me, but they don't run my life anymore. So as you're looking at this list, I want you to really try to put aside the shame and judgment that you have maybe when you're looking at this list, right? Because it's such a perfectionism thing. Like, I'm so bad that I'm a people pleaser, judging yourself for procrastinating. We cannot heal what we hate. And so the parts of ourselves that we hate, we cannot heal. And so it is so important during this 1 hour workshop today to really put your shame, your judgment, and your guilt behind you. You can pick it up after if you want, but let's put it aside us today, just for an hour. You'll be more open-minded. All right, so let's take it a step further. How does perfectionism, what are some scenarios of how it comes up in your career, right? Reading an email 20, 30 times before sending it, right? Not speaking up in meetings for fear of judgment. Setting people-pleasing deadlines instead of realistic deadlines. This was something I used to always do, right? My project list was 20 miles long, and I would be like, well, I'll get it to you on Friday, knowing good and well, there was no way I was going to need to work till 2 a.m. to get it done. And I was, instead of just being honest, like, hey, these are my projects and my priorities, which falls in line, or, no, I can't. What about Monday? Just being honest, but we're afraid, right? Of not being perfect, of not having it all together. Procrastinating, your career being your identity. Again, when I was working at the law firm, my identity was my career. My career was, same thing. My career was my identity. How much money I made was my identity. Moving up the corporate ladder was my identity. Taking on too many projects. We talked about imposter syndrome. Not asking for that promotion or that raise because you're afraid, right? Like, what if my boss thinks that I'm not worthy of this? What if I get fired? We will catastrophize things as perfectionists. We'll go there. How does it look in your life? Right? Putting yourself last, always doing for others. Again, the third time I've mentioned this, phoning 8 friends for advice. One of the things that this was a chronic thing for me. I was always asking for advice, because what perfectionism does is it takes us outside of our bodies, and we're not able to access our intuition because we've been outsourcing our intuition to everyone else. And this started for me as a young child, right? I allowed my parents to be my intuition. And then that just kind of grew and grew into adulthood. And so one of the things I did to heal this chronic people pleasing and chronic advice seeking, external validation seeking, was I went on a 2-week advice detox. So for 2 weeks, I didn't ask anyone for advice. And as someone who was chronically asking for advice, it was really hard for me to do that. I would pick up the phone, and then like my friend would answer and I'd be like, I can't remember why I called you, and have to put the phone down. And it was really powerful because it made me realize like how much I was asking everyone else. And there's so much power, right? When we heal our perfection, when we lead with imperfection, we become the leaders of our lives. When we are stuck in perfectionism, you all, we are the bystanders of our lives because we're allowing everyone else to dictate our life. What do you think I should do? I'm not going to stand up for myself. I'm not going to speak up for myself. We are the bystanders of our lives. So healing perfectionism and stepping into your imperfectly beautiful self is all about becoming the leader and the CEO of your life. Really becoming and living the idea that you are the expert of you, no one else. And it is powerful. Again, lack of healthy boundaries in relationships. The word should is always a sign that you are in perfectionism, right? Because you're comparing yourself. You're comparing your journey to someone else's journey. You know, you're on social media scrolling and you're like, well, I should have taken those holiday pictures. Look at XYZ's family and they look so perfect. Little things like that. All of these thoughts, when you procrastinate, for example, think about how much brain space just the procrastination of that project takes up. It takes up more time and space than actually sitting down and doing the project. You go home and you're not present with your family because, again, you're thinking about that project and beating yourself up. You walk into the office the next day, you're not present with your team because you're thinking about that project. And so all of these things, while they may seem insignificant, they aren't. Because when we talk negatively to ourselves, when we are beating ourselves up for a typo in an email, when we are overwhelmed, when we're shoulding all over the place, I should be further along, these things add up to minutes, to hours, to weeks, and in my case, 3 decades of my life. 3 decades I was stuck in perfectionism, which is why it is my mission to turn every perfectionist into a recovering perfectionist. I am passionate about this, clearly. Okay, so let's get to the 3 steps today that we're going to go over. Some of this is I'm going to have some journaling exercises for you because I want you to walk away having done some work. I'm not just going to talk at you. And so I'm going to take you through these 3 steps. Step 1 is awareness. Right? We got to be aware of how perfectionism is holding us back. Then we're going to switch your mindset. So now that you know better, it's time to do better. And so we've got to step into a different mindset and embody a different mindset. And then we're going to get into action, right? So I'm actually going to have you all complete an action plan for one of your perfectionism patterns on how to correct it, right? Because we get out of life what we are intentional about. So we can talk all day about your perfectionism patterns, but I'm the kind of coach and trainer that wants you to actually get results and see change. So we are going to get into action. And yes, just an hour. All right. So awareness. Ooh, excuse me. The 2 pieces of awareness I'm going to talk to you about today are curious observation and pattern identification. Curiosity really is the cure-all. When we can get curious about our thoughts, the things that we're telling ourselves, the criticisms that we have about ourselves, we are really able to start changing. As perfectionists, we are so hard on ourselves. And so we have to turn that criticism into curiosity. Again, we cannot heal what we hate. And so it is critical. So I'm going to give you an example of what curious observation looks like opposed to perfectionism. So here's a scenario. A friend calls you and he or she got a job promotion. As a perfectionist, you feel jealousy. Because you feel jealousy, you start beating yourself up. You know, why can't I just be happy for my friend? I'm such a bad person. I always feel jealous. I'm a bad person because I'm jealous. You know, I want that promotion. Why am I not getting that promotion? I must not be good at my job. I mean, it's a tornado. That's how perfectionism works. Now, let's take off the perfectionism hat and put on the curiosity hat, right? We're going to change our criticism to curiosity. Same scenario. Your friend calls. Hey, I got a promotion. You feel jealousy. You're like, okay, let me get curious about this, because here's the thing. Jealousy is a feeling. We're all human. We feel it. It's not good or bad. It just is. The thing is, as perfectionists, we label it as bad. So we feel jealousy and then we get curious. You know, why am I jealous of my friend? You know, I think I'm jealous of my friend because I have not been showing up in my career the way that I'm proud of. I'm jealous because I want a promotion. I want to play bigger in my life, and I've been playing smaller in my life. See the difference in that? The perfection tornado, the criticism, and if you just transition it to curiosity, you're able to then start healing it. Okay, like let me make a different choice. How can I play bigger? How can I brainstorm? What do I actually want to do with my life? What is my purpose? Or, you know, like what are the things I need to do to really show up and stand out in my career? And so when I'm working with clients in a group setting or one-on-one or corporate, we typically spend a week. It's either pre-work or during the weeks we're working together. And they get really curious about their thoughts. And so I have them literally take an inventory of every negative thought they have about themselves. And I have them take an inventory of every negative thought they have about other people, because the negative thoughts we have about other people are just windows into the negative thoughts we have about ourselves. It's just a reflection. All right, so curious observation. The second piece of awareness is pattern identification. So identifying what are the patterns in my life where perfectionism is showing up. And so what I've done is I've created two types of perfectionism, slow and fast. So slow perfectionism is the kind of perfectionism that keeps you stuck. It's when you procrastinate, when you can't make a decision, when you feel stuck, you're afraid of failure, you feel like an imposter, right? You have that black and white thinking. It's when you're stuck. Then on the other end of the spectrum is fast perfectionism, right? It's when you set those people-pleasing deadlines instead of realistic deadlines, you're approval seeking, you have unrealistic expectations of yourself, it's obsessive thinking, the work harder, achieve more, my career is my identity, it leads to burnout. So there are two types of perfectionism and they show up in different areas of our lives. So in one area of your life, you might be slow and fast. In other areas, you might be neither. And then in some areas of your life, you may be slow or fast. For me, I was slow and fast in basically every single area of my life. And so let me give you some examples, and then I want you to, we're going to do a journaling exercise where you really think about where you're slow and fast. So in relationships, I was fast because I was a people pleaser. I was codependent, I was enmeshed, I had no healthy boundaries. I was slow in my relationships because I was afraid to have difficult conversations, especially in my intimate relationships. I was so afraid because one of my deepest wounds is my fear of abandonment. And so I put up this perfectionism screen to try and avoid that fear of being abandoned, right? If I'm perfect, if I don't bring it up, like I'm not worthy of this, like I'm the person who's wrong. I was afraid to be vulnerable. And so that's how slow and fast showed up for me in relationships. In my career, I was also both slow and fast because, and if everyone wouldn't mind muting themselves, that would be awesome. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. In my career, I was both slow and fast. So I was fast in my career because I was go, 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 achieve, achieve, yes, 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 whatever project you need, climb the corporate ladder, I need more, I need to make more money. I was slow in my career because I procrastinate. Oh gosh, I got to write this document. I've never done anything like this before. I'm going to put it off. I'm going to put it off. I'd avoid having difficult conversations with my boss or with my team members, right? Like, oh, we need to have a redirecting feedback conversation. That makes me nervous. I don't know how they're going to react. So let me just avoid it. In my health, I was a fast perfectionist when I was punishing myself by working out. So I actually worked out as a form of punishment because I really struggled with body image for a lot of my life and thought that determined my worth. And so I had to work out all the time and punish myself. And so that's how it showed up in my health. On the other end, I was also slow in my health because I experienced so much shame around my body. I would isolate from my friends and actually cancel plans. And so I'd miss out on life just because I thought I needed to have the perfect body, right? It's when we don't get in our bathing suit when we're with our kids because we're afraid. It's like, and our child's not going to remember what we look like in our bathing suit. They're going to remember, do we get in the pool with them? And so we miss out on memories. We miss out on moments. We miss out on being present. And again, these individual things may seem insignificant, but it's part of a larger picture and a larger pattern. And so it's a huge opportunity to heal and share. All right, so we're gonna do an exercise and I want you all to reflect. I'm gonna give you 2.5 minutes. I'm gonna turn some music on and I want you to think in your career. Are you slow or are you fast? Are you both? Then I also want you to think about your personal life. Are you slow? Are you fast? Or you're both? Like in your intimate relationship, family relationships, parenting, anything that's coming up for you. So let's look, where are the perfectionism patterns showing up? When I do this in a corporate setting, we dive a lot deeper, but we only have an hour today. So we're just going to start this deep dive into perfectionism. So I'm going to turn some music on. And feel free to put comments in the chat if you have a question, but I want you all to think about that. And then I've included, hold on, let me go back to slow and fast. I think that would probably be helpful for you all. I'll put this chart up. Let me turn some music on and please interact in the chat box. I've been thinking, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier.
flame in the wind of the fire that we begun. Every argument, every word we can't take back. Cause with all that has happened, I think that we both know the way that the story ends. There's only for a minute. I want to change my mind, 'cause this just don't feel right to me. I wanna raise your spirits. I want to see you smile. No, that means I'll have to leave. No, that means I'll have to leave. Lately, I've been thinking, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier. When the evening falls, and I'm left there with my thoughts, and the image of you being with someone else, well, it's eating me up inside. But we ran our course, we pretended we're okay. Now if we jump together, at least we can swim far away from the wreck we made. Then only for a minute, I want to change my mind, 'cause this just don't feel right to me. I wanna raise your spirits. I want to see you smile. No, that means I'll have to leave. No, that means I'll have to leave. Lately, I've been thinking, I want you to be happier.
Okay, thank you all for participating. Yeah, so some of you commented that you have unrealistic expectations of yourself and therefore unrealistic expectations of your team. I experienced the same thing. Yeah, the need for control, fear of failure, work harder, achieve more. Yeah, characteristics of both sides. So again, this is not to shame you. This is not to make you feel bad about yourself, because here's the thing, most people walk and spend their entire lives stuck in perfectionism, and you all showed up for yourself today, and it's an opportunity for you to heal and start just being aware, right? We don't need to fix, again, we don't need to perfection our growth and healing. A lot of times we're like, oh, I got to heal every single one of these symptoms today. And that's not how it works. Take a deep breath. All of it's going to unfold as it should, right? All the awareness that's coming to you today is coming to you on purpose. So one brick by brick, one thing at a time. All right, so let's now move into mindset. So now we have an idea of how perfectionism is showing up. Okay, I think I'm slow in this area. I think I'm fast in this area. That's interesting. Let me get curious about it. So now we need to change our mindset. And so I'm going to talk through with you all today about self-compassion, the 4 C's of leading with imperfection, or the 4 C's of compassion. I'm going to teach you some reframing tools, and then I'm also going to share with you some of my favorite mantras to heal perfectionism. So let's start. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. All right, so self-compassion. Here's the thing. Just like perfectionism is a habit, you all, we have to make compassion a habit. And I know all of you on this call are leaders, you're high achievers, and you're like, I hate that word compassion. I don't even know how to put that on a checklist. Like, I don't want to do that woo-woo compassion stuff. But here's the thing, if you want a different life, you've got to do something different. And so compassion was something I really pushed up against for a very long time. You know, I was so deeply ingrained that I needed to be critical of myself, that I needed to punish my way to success. And that is just not how it works. So we have to actually make self-compassion a habit and a part of our lives. So first things first, love and perfectionism cannot coexist. So when we have perfectionism, when we infuse compassion and love, then that perfectionism diminishes. Right? So think about the scenario about the jealousy, right? We infused that curiosity and that compassion, and that allowed you to get really curious. Right? It felt so much lighter than that perfection tornado. So it's just a reminder that love and compassion cannot be in the same room with perfectionism. So the more that we make compassion a habit, and I'm going to teach you all how to make it a habit, the more we make it a habit, the less perfectionism is going to have oxygen in the room, the less space it's going to hold in our brain. So There are 4 C's of self-compassion, and this is an easier way to look at it. So you want to go through the 4 C's, and the 4 C's are turning your criticism, which is your perfectionism criticism, into curiosity, right? Getting really curious, then being compassionate about it, and then making a different choice. So let's go back to the example of jealousy, right? Your friend calls you, you feel jealous, you immediately are like, I'm a bad person because I feel jealous. Oh my gosh, you start the perfection tornado, but then you stop because you notice that criticism. Wow, I'm being really hard on myself, right? That criticism. Then you get curious about it, like we talked about earlier. Why am I feeling jealous? Why am I being so hard on myself? That's really interesting. Then we get compassionate. Of course, I'm being hard on myself. I'm always pushing myself to be the best. Perfection is deeply ingrained. So, of course, it makes sense that I'm being really hard on myself and that jealousy is coming up for me in this moment. The 4th C is choice. Then let's make a different choice. Okay, so this has really brought to my attention that, I want to ask for a promotion, or I want a different career, or I want to find my purpose. What's that next step that I need to take? What's that action I can choose differently? I don't need to go down that criticism, perfectionism tornado. I actually have a choice. Because remember what we were saying is that perfectionism makes you and keeps you as the bystander in your life. And when you can step into leading with imperfection, you become the leader and the CEO of your life. You get in the driver's seat of your life instead of the passenger seat, which is where we sit when we're stuck in perfectionism. And so that power of choice allows you to become the leader of your life because you're like, okay, I'm going to change the way I think. I'm going to make a different choice. And so it's really, really exciting. So these are the 4 C's. One of the ways that you all can incorporate this into your routine and what I encourage my clients to do is do a midday check-in with yourself. And it's going to feel a little awkward at first, but if you can sit down at lunchtime or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock and reflect on your day, right? And say, okay, go through the 4 C's. Where have I been critical about? Where have I been critical to myself? Was I upset because I dropped my child off at school late, or virtual learning's not going well? Any number of things. I beat myself up for the way I look in the mirror. Then get curious about it, infuse compassion, and make a different choice, because that allows you to actually change the trajectory of your day. When you do the midday compassion check-in with the 4 C's, it allows you to change, again, the trajectory of your day. Because when we don't do that check-in, then the perfection tornado goes all day long. We sleep, we have anxiety, and we wake up and it's snowball effect, and it does it again and again and again. So this check-in will feel a little awkward, but the thing is the more you do it, the less awkward it's going to feel. And then you're actually not going to have to do it because you're just going to instantly start changing your thoughts from criticism to curiosity to compassion and then make a different choice. Okay. So let's talk reframing. So we talked about the compassion check-in, that compassion and perfectionism cannot coexist. And yeah, thank you all for sharing on sharing all of the things, the feedback. I love the chat box, so thank you. Continue to engage. So reframing are tools to change your perspective, right? So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so again, this is about becoming the leader of your life, leading with imperfection, right? Choosing your perspective. We can stay in the boat of life is happening to me, or we can switch to the boat of life is happening for me. I had this really hard thing happen, but how did I overcome it and what did I learn from it? So it's a choice for us. We can stay in the passenger seat of our lives as a bystander in perfectionism and just the doom and gloom, or we can make a different choice and we can start reframing our thoughts, taking the tools today, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know all these things were holding me back, and get empowered and start living a different way. So these are some reframing tools you can use. The first is going from what if to even if. So I am someone who is prone to anxiety as a recovering perfectionist. And so it's easy for me to get in what if mode, because as perfectionists, we want to control the future. And we think that if we what if something to death, that we'll be able to get the answers. We'll be able to tell the future, which we know is not possible. but we think it. So we'll get into this mode of what if, right? Which is fear-based, perfection-based. Well, what if my child doesn't go back to in-person school in 2021? What if this client doesn't like my work product? What if I get a bad review? What if, what if, what if? That creates anxiety in our chest. Again, it's those minutes of our life that add up to hours, weeks, months, and years of what ifing. I invite you to switch your what ifs to even if. Even if that client, cancels, doesn't like the work product, it's going to be okay. Even if I get a negative review, it'll be something that I can learn from and I can improve, and at least someone's communicating with me. It's going to be okay. Even if my child does not go to in-person school in 2021, I'm not going to be alone. There'll be new mechanisms in place. It's temporary. It's going to be okay. So it's a choice. We can stay stuck in the what if. It's a choice, or we can choose and reframe and go to even if. Also, you can reframe from uncertainty to possibility. So again, the one universal truth that this pandemic has shown all of us is that life is uncertain, and the only thing we have that we're in control of is ourselves. This has always been true, but we're no longer able to escape this truth, right? We're stuck in our houses and we're not able to escape this truth. And so when I'm in a space of uncertainty, like, oh my gosh, things are uncertain, I feel constricted, new ideas do not come to me, I cannot brainstorm, I feel very cut off, right? I get that slow perfectionism when I'm in uncertainty. I invite you to switch your uncertainty to possibility. What's possible for me? During the financial crisis of 2008, which is a different time, but still a time of mass chaos, some of our most innovative companies were born during that financial crisis. I'm talking about Uber, Slack, Airbnb, Pinterest, WhatsApp. That's just to name a few. They took a time of uncertainty and instead asked, what's possible? And now they're some of our most widely used companies. And so I invite you to think about what's possible for me. What's possible for me in my career, how I serve my clients, how I talk to my team, what's possible in my personal life, how I engage with my significant other, my family, my children, my friends. What's possible for my relationship with myself? Because we oftentimes put ourselves last. And so that's an important space. What's possible for me? And so again, it's just an invitation going from uncertainty to possibility. The last item of reframing is gratitude. Gratitude is the number one thing that has shifted my mindset. I do morning gratitude journaling every single morning. Now I'm human, so there's some mornings that I miss, but I spend every single morning. This is a critical, non-negotiable part of my morning routine. And I think about gratitude. Because here's the thing, what you appreciate appreciates. Gratitude allows those roller coaster obstacles in your life to be more just like this, right? You encounter them and they're like, okay, this is scary, but I can overcome this, right? That gratitude infuses a different perspective. And so the way I do my gratitude journaling, because it can be a little awkward at first, right? We're like, I'm grateful for like my family, my job, my health, my car, my house. The way you can expand your thinking, and I'm also suggesting that you write it down, because when you write it down, it's scientifically proven that it rewires your brain. So when you are writing down your gratitude, it rewires your brain to a place of gratitude. So I want you to sit down in the mornings. I invite you to do this and start your day off with it. And again, if you're not a morning person, if you want a different life, you got to do something different. And I want you to approach gratitude from past, present, and future. And what I mean by that is when I sit down, I think past, okay, what happened yesterday that I'm really grateful for? Did a client of mine have an aha moment? Did I have a really sweet interaction with my son? Did I overcome an obstacle that I didn't think I was going to be able to overcome? What happened yesterday? Did I receive a compliment? What happened yesterday that I'm really grateful for? Then I think about the present moment. What is happening right now in this moment? And for me, it's oftentimes the fact that I have an hour to myself before my son wakes up, right? It's quiet, I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm grateful for that. Then I think about the future. What's happening later today? What's happening tomorrow? What's happening next week that I'm grateful for? And so this morning, I was like, I'm really excited that I get to put on this webinar for your organization. And so it's just about finding the gratitude. And I'm telling you, it will shift your perspective. But these are all things that have the compound effect, right? We don't just go from what if to even if once and we see this miraculous change. We don't practice gratitude once and then our lives shift forever. It is really committing to yourself and showing up for yourself on a consistent basis. All right, mantras, the final piece of mindset. So mantras are another word for affirmation. I just prefer mantras. And mantras are statements that can help you feel grounded in a time where you feel groundless. And during this pandemic, it is very easy to feel groundless, especially if we are perfectionists, because everything's out of our control. And so these are my 4 favorite mantras. I'll have a text to download where you can actually download all of my favorite perfectionism mantras or anti-perfectionism mantras. But I just want to share with you these 4. So the first one is I give myself room to be human. As perfectionists, we're so hard on ourselves. We make a mistake. We have a typo in an email. We'll beat ourselves up all day, 2 days, an entire week. And so it's all about giving yourself room to be human. The beautiful thing is too, is that when you give yourself room to be human, you give others permission to be human too. And for me, that is incentive enough, right? I give my son permission to be human when I give myself permission to be human. Same thing was when I was critical of my team, and it was because I was being critical of myself. And so the more I can give myself room to be human, then I can give my team room to be human. The second one is done is better than perfect. Again, for all my procrastinators on this call, just get into action, right? Done is better than perfect. When I was writing my book, I had just read Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. And she said, the crappy first book is better than no book. And I was like, okay. Now, I do not think my book is bad, but everyone has their opinions. But for me, I was like, you're right. Like, I can either just get this imperfect piece of literature out into the world and fulfill one of my goals and dreams, or I can stay stuck in perfectionism. So done is better than perfect. All right, one of my favorites, all of them I like, but this one is maybe my favorite, is I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. Relationships, opportunities, career, everything. You cannot miss out on what's meant for you, you all. Right? Yeah, Jane, thank you. Yeah, don't let perfect get in the way of good, right? Yeah, don't let perfect get in the way of progress. But I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. So often we get out of our lane. We're looking into other people's lanes. Well, that person's career trajectory is this, and this person had this opportunity, and this family has a bigger house or better car. That's not meant for you. And so if you can just say, like, I cannot miss out on what's meant for me, you start loosening your grip and really just kind of step out of control. Last one is action leads to confidence, which leads to action. Perfection is a confidence killer. And so we think that if we can think our way into confidence, but actually the only way we build confidence is acting our way into confidence. So taking action. Make that call, have that difficult conversation, start writing that project or working on that client project. Just start, because every step you take is going to build your confidence, and then you're going to take more action, and then you're going to have more confidence, and you're going to feel better about yourself. Again, this is about being the leader of your life. So these are my 4 favorite mantras. Choose them. Whichever one really resonates with you, it could be all 4, one of them. I suggest that you write them down after your gratitude journaling, because it helps you rewire your brain. So you actually start you'll start rehearsing it to yourself. I give myself room to be human. Like, if you write it down, and then it's going to come more easily to you. You can also set reminders on your phone where these statements come up. You can also do sticky notes on your bathroom mirror if that resonates with you as well. All right, so we've talked about awareness. We've talked about mindset. And so now let's get into action. So action is all about taking massive, imperfect action. It's about looking at those patterns that we unearthed a little while ago. Okay, I'm slow here, I'm fast here, and then plugging it into an action plan. So here is the template that I like to use with my clients. So the first is identifying that area of, and I'm going to give you all some examples. So the first is identifying that area of slow and fast perfectionism. Then you're going to write your goal. Then you're going to come up with the resources and roadblocks, your timeline. And then the last one is the kicker. How are you going to celebrate? As perfectionists, we typically do not celebrate our wins. We just move on to the next thing. We're pushing. We do not celebrate. So, for example, if your area of perfectionism is you're fast, you're constantly people pleasing, advice seeking, your goal could be that advice detox that I talked about. The resources are that you're going to need to be in a space where you're constantly reminding yourself that give yourself room to be human, that you can do this. The roadblocks could be fear of, oh my gosh, I've been outsourcing my decisions for so long. Can I do this? I'm scared of making a decision by myself. Timeline is I'm going to do this for 2 weeks. Celebration could be buying yourself something, maybe just going on a hike by yourself, right? Getting a babysitter and just like doing nothing, going to a coffee shop, or sitting in a different room in your house alone. It could also be just, it doesn't have to also involve financial celebration. It could be just acknowledging it with a friend that knows you're working on these things and improving yourself. So it could just be texting your best friend or your coach or someone who's holding you accountable, and you can say, oh my gosh, I did this and I'm so proud of myself. Another area, so say you're really hard on yourself, right? You have a lot of negativity, and your goal is you want to start consistently gratitude journaling every morning. Your resources are you'd like to have a nice gratitude journal, but here's the thing, you just need printer paper to start. You don't have to have the perfect journal. Don't let that be a reason to not. And the roadblock could be that, you know what, you got 3 kids, you got to get people ready for school. Like, how are you got virtual learning, you also got deadlines. How do you have time for this? You don't even have 5 minutes. So it's just acknowledging that roadblock and then making a choice that, you know what, I'm still going to squeeze this in because I'm worth it. And everyone actually around me benefits when I benefit. Timeline could be, okay, I'm going to try and do this every day for 2 weeks. And then your celebration could be then buying yourself that gratitude journal that you've been eyeing on Amazon. So what I want you all to do is I want you to fill out one of these for yourself on your piece of paper. I'm going to turn some music on again, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes and just complete this action plan. And what happens is, again, we get out of life what we're intentional about. And so we can leave today like, okay, I'm a perfectionist, and do nothing about it and stay the bystander of our lives. Or we can say, you know what? Wow, I can become the leader of my life, the CEO of my life. I can do things differently, brick by brick. Let me take that first area that I identified and let me plug it into this action plan, and I can make change. So I'm going to turn music on, give you all 2 minutes, and then we'll go from there. And if you have questions, include them in the chat box. And I'm playing the same song we listened to because it's my son's favorite.
Lately, I've been thinking, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier. When the morning comes and we see what we've become. In the cold light of day, we're a flame in the wind of the fire that we begun. Every argument, every word we can't take back. Cause with all that has happened, I think that we both know the way that the story ends. There's only for a minute. I want to change my mind, cause this just don't feel right to me. I wanna raise your spirits. I want to see you smile. No, that means I'll have to leave. No, that means I'll have to leave. Lately, I've been thinking, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier. When the evening falls,
1 more minute.
left there with my thoughts, and the image of you being with someone else was it's eating me up inside. But we ran our course, we pretended we're okay. Now if we jump together, at least we can swim far away from the wreck we made. Then only for a minute, I want to change my mind, cause this just don't feel right to me. I wanna raise your spirits. I want to see you smile. No, that means I'll have to leave. No, that means I'll have to leave.
Okay. So if anyone feels like sharing, you can either unmute yourself, because I love that kind of engagement, but also feel free to include in the chat box, what came up for you. So for me, one of the areas that I'm working on is, as a perfectionist, I always get in my head and I get out of my heart and into my head a lot of times. And so for me, one of my goals is I'm doing 30 minutes of meditation for the next 30 days to really embrace the stillness. It's something that I've been pushing up against for a long time, right? And so the resources for me are just, I need time and patience. And the roadblocks could be for me, like not thinking I have enough time, right? Because 30 minutes is not a small chunk of time. Also, just getting agitated while I'm sitting still for 30 minutes. My timeline again is for 30 days. And to celebrate, I am going to buy myself this little meditation pillow. So that's something I'm doing for myself. So I wanted to see if there were any questions about this. I think we're good. Okay. We just did that. Excuse me. All right. So I just want to end. Oh, Kimberly, do you have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I guess I was trying to go through each of the steps. And so like I have a lot of times the fast perfectionism issue I have would be like I promise too much, like I just personally and professionally, and I find myself just jam-packing my day so much that I'm working from 8 to like 10 at night, either with work and like outside of work things I volunteer for and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I have this personal need to like get all of that done that I've put in my head that I have to get done that day. And so the goal would be to schedule time for myself and then remove some of the roadblocks, like being involved in too much or putting that on myself. And then the resources, ask for help and like letting go and from coworkers or friends or family or wherever I can get that. And I guess I can put a timeline of 30 days of trying that out.
Yeah, and maybe then I would also suggest maybe just doing like start with a week or 2 weeks, right? Because sometimes when we're starting our journey of growth, when we put too much of a timeline, again, we perfection it, right? So then we mess up and then we're like, never mind. I'm not perfect with it. So maybe even just try it a week and allow for some flexibility. Like maybe it's also that your goal is that you practice the pause. So when someone asks you something, again, as perfectionists, we think we need to answer immediately. And typically the immediate answer is a people-pleasing answer. And so even just, I think, scheduling time for yourself and practicing the pause. But I would say like, give it a week, right? From today to, next Wednesday, and just see how that feels for you. And then you can stretch it like, okay, I like this. I'm gonna try and do it for 2 weeks now. Does that feel good?
I thought a reward, a celebration for myself would be schedule a massage.
Yes, exactly. That's what it's about, right? You've got to celebrate. You've got to acknowledge that you're getting out of your comfort zone and changing. And it may seem small, but I'm telling you all, it is not. Like you saying no and setting time away for yourself is going to be transformative. So thank you, Kimberly, for sharing that. Anyone else want to share or have questions? Okay, cool. I just want to remind you all today that healing your perfectionism is an opportunity for you to become the leader of your life, the CEO of your life, for you to connect back to your intuition so that you trust yourself. We think we trust ourselves, but then when we take a step back and look, it's like, no, actually, I've been outsourcing my trust to everyone around me. I've been making everyone else a priority. I've been putting my dreams on hold, my wants and my desires. I've been, stuck in this prison of perfectionism. And so whatever you take away today, I just encourage you to implement it and utilize it. I've got a free resource if you want to text it for all the mantras. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have some group programs starting in the next few weeks, and we can stay in touch. So if you have questions, if something really came up for you or triggered you, like you are not alone, like feel free to email me and let's have a conversation, right? So you're not in this alone. Reach out. I'm really excited and I'm honored to spend this time with you today. And thank you for showing up for yourself. So I'm here for any questions, or Heather, I'm not sure if you want to close it or how you want to do this.
Does anyone have questions today? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Vitale. This is great information, and I personally can find a lot of good nuggets in here to help myself. I
Awesome.
hope everyone enjoyed the program today, and thank you for participating. We appreciate you being here with us.
Awesome. Thank you all so much, and go be the leader of your life.
Bye, everyone.
See everyone. Glad to see some people different today.
Good to see you, Alan.
See you, Heather.